After the start of the Russian-Ukrainian war, many began to question Western military doctrines, which rely mainly on the use of precision weapons, stealth fighters, and other highly sophisticated systems. They argue that such equipment is produced in small quantities, and that in the end, everything will come down to armies facing each other in trenches, throwing tons of explosives at one another. But Israel's operation against Iranian targets showed that everything is relative. With a well-planned and precise special military operation, it is possible to achieve set objectives. And of course, the first thing that stands out during the Israeli strike is the successful suppression of Iranian air defenses, I emphasize, in the designated sector. After all, it would be foolish to assume that there is no air defense left in Iran as a class. It is claimed that some of the surface-to-air missile systems were destroyed with the help of saboteurs using both strike drones and, presumably, spike non-line-of-sight systems, which allow spike missiles to be guided without direct line of sight to the target. How many surface-to-air missile systems were destroyed in this way is unknown. In the videos that appeared online, we mostly see short and medium-range systems. How the long-range systems were disabled we will find out later. There are theories about the use of the Harop unmanned aerial vehicle with an anti-radar homing head, which independently detects and strikes sources of radio emissions. But the fact remains, Israel managed to clear the skies on the first day of the operation, let me emphasize again, in the sectors it needed. From the Iraqi border to the nuclear facility in Natanz is about 500 kilometers. Of course, we don't know exactly what means the Israeli fighter jets used to strike it. Recent attacks on the Houthis used Rampage missiles, reportedly the most advanced and longest-range missiles in the Israeli Air Force, from 150 to 250 kilometers. This gives us a very rough idea of how long the corridor breached in Iran's air defenses. And also, that modern technology, no matter how you look at it, still makes the difference, although that was clear even a year ago.
Despite the formidable presence of Russian S-300s, Israeli pinpoint strikes in 2023 and 2024 dealt painful blows to Iran's air defense. Both the launchers and radars were disabled, crippling the entire system's vision and hearing. One of the key episodes was the destruction of a radar installation near Isfahan. It became a symbol of vulnerability that official Tehran is desperately trying to conceal.
This inevitably brings us back to how the Russian General Staff approached their special military operation. For example, they thought it was enough to assure the public on television and online that the Ukrainian air defense and aviation had been destroyed. After that, they sent Su-34S to bomb peaceful Ukrainian cities with unguided aerial bombs, just like in World War II. As a result, they lost Su aircraft, each valued at $50 million, to ordinary man-portable air defense systems. The Israeli Air Force has not lost a single fighter jet participating in the operation so far. I'm saying this because if this trend continues, it will be a clear signal to Moscow. Despite the apparent weakness of the European part of NATO, it is premature to write it off. The European NATO members possess 120 F-35s and 20 long-range radar detection aircraft, a significant fact to consider. After all, at the very least, surgically precise strikes against air defense make a state vulnerable to subsequent attacks. Notably, high-precision weapons targeted more than just surface-to-air or operational tactical missile systems. For the first time in military history, it was used on such a large scale against high-ranking military command and individuals involved in its creation. I won't list the names of the IRGC generals and scientists who were killed. It gets updated faster than I can rewrite the video script. But the photos of the apartments hit belonging to war criminals are truly impressive. We must still determine how the strikes will impact the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' capabilities, their development of countermeasures, and crucially, their ability to maintain power in the country. After all, as we remember, decapitating the leadership of Hezbollah almost completely destroyed the group.
With God's help, our response will be powerful and impactful. There are only a few days and nights left before we meet Israel on the battlefield.
Sorry to interrupt. We have official confirmation from the Hezbollah group about the death of Hassan Nasrallah. What do you have to say about this?
Of course, the timing for an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities has been chosen perfectly. It would likely be unwise for them not to capitalize on this opportunity. Jerusalem has always been restrained by Iranian proxies positioned along the borders. But now Hezbollah is incapacitated, and Hamas for obvious reasons can't strike from behind. And most importantly, there are no more Iranian formations in Syria. The Yemeni Houthis remain, but their capabilities are limited to missile strikes, which can't concern Jerusalem as much as Hezbollah's ground operations. The remaining leaders, who managed to announce that they are not going to participate in Iran's response, once again demonstrate all this ostentatious paid-for fanaticism. It's premature to dismiss Iran. Its retaliatory strike, though not overwhelming, raises questions about the number of missiles it possesses and the quantity of interceptors Israel has. After all, this could determine what strategy they develop in Tehran. These shocking images of strikes on Tel Aviv are terrifying. After the initial exchange of strikes, it's clear that the Israeli air defense performed significantly better than the Iranian one. While intercepting everything is impossible, the mockery of some Z-bloggers toward the Iron Dome reveals their bloodthirstiness and amateurism. After all, the Iron Dome system is not designed to intercept long-range ballistic missiles. Like in all countries, Israel has a multi-layered air defense system, where the Arrow system is responsible for ballistic missiles, and of course, there are the American Terminal High-Altitude Area Defense Systems. The second level features the David's Sling system, intercepting medium-range ballistic and cruise missiles. Following that is the Iron Dome, which intercepts unguided rockets and drones. In the first 2 days, this multi-layered shield performed well, but the question is how long it can withstand attacks and whether the Iranians have the means to keep striking. We will be watching, because of course the situation in the Middle East directly affects our region as well.
The Iranians can respond not only with conventional strikes, but also by blocking the Strait of Hormuz and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. In fact, that's exactly why Trump ordered another aircraft carrier to be sent to the Indian Ocean in order to prevent this.
Of course, everyone has seen the oil price chart and knows what caused its rise. Markets are also pressured by Israel's ultimatum. If Iran launches an excessive missile strike, its oil infrastructure will be destroyed. Fortunately, the terminal that handles 90% of Iran's oil exports is conveniently located on Kark Island. Tehran, in turn, promises to block the Strait of Hormuz. No doubt they're drinking champagne in the Kremlin because of what's happening now in the Middle East. Here you have both the shifting of the global focus and the redirection of weapons that were meant for Ukraine. What worries me most is that all the missiles for the Patriot Advanced Capability 2 and Patriot Advanced Capability 3 systems coming off the assembly lines by order of the White House could be redirected to Israel. In this situation, Ukraine desperately needs support from Europe, at least in the form of temporary compensation for the shortage of surface-to-air guided missiles from their own stockpiles. But is a positive outcome possible? Let me quote a post you'll never guess by Yulia Latinina. I'm reading. I'm proud of Israel, proud that Netanyahu directly emphasized in his address, this is not a war with the people of Iran, this is a war with the mullah's regime. And he expressed hope that the time will come when these two ancient peoples will become friends again. Of course, Kremlin propaganda couldn't miss the chance to throw a stone at Ukraine, even in this situation. Latinina's writing seems to hint. You see, Israelis, unlike Ukrainians, are not fighting the Iranian people, they are fighting the regime. In the understanding of her handlers, it's necessary to instill in those fighting for Ukraine's freedom the idea that they are fighting against Putin and that the Russian people are their brothers. This trick is needed so that, in the event of a truce or a frozen conflict, politicians willing to move closer to the Russian Federation can be promoted within Ukraine, based on the narrative that brothers may quarrel, but they are still family. This strategy was described by Vladislav Surkov. But here's the thing. The thing is, Israel is indeed fighting against the Iranian regime, which doesn't have much support from the population. There are regular economic, social, and political protests in Iran. In 2022, millions protested against the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Over 19,000 were arrested, 500 killed, and 7 executed. Actually, it's enough to look at how Iranians vote. For those who don't know, this Middle Eastern country has relatively democratic elections. And now the president of the country is the reformist Masoud Pezeshkian.
Pezeshkian criticized the law from the time of the Islamic Revolution that requires women to cover their heads and necks in public. Iran's newly elected president supports establishing ties with the West, promising to end the country's global isolation. Pezeshkian calls for constructive talks with the West regarding the renewal of the 2015 nuclear deal, under which Iran agreed to limit its nuclear program in exchange for the easing of Western sanctions.
His position is merely formal, as all power in the country lies with the Rabah and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. It is with them that Israel is fighting, that's true. Unlike the Russian Federation, where Putin has the unconditional support of the population, as well as former liberals like Latinina, Ayatollah Khamenei holds power with the help of mere fanatic militants. People in Israel and the democratic world hope he won't retain power this time. I share that hope. How events will unfold depends on a huge number of factors. It's impossible to predict them all. What will be the reaction of the population? How long will the airstrikes continue? Who else among high-ranking officials will be eliminated in Iran? Will Ayatollah be able to maintain internal political unity and suppress the protests? Will there be protests at all? Of course, for Ukraine, the worst-case scenario is a prolonged conflict between Tehran and Jerusalem with regular mutual attacks. But seeing how Iranians rejoice at the Israeli Air Force strikes on Iranian arsenals, I wouldn't bet all my money that Khamenei will easily manage to hold on to power. So all we can do is hope that Israel will solve this problem quickly. The Ayatollah's regime will collapse, and the Iranian Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, who regularly supports Ukraine, will return to Iran. There is a chance for this to happen, even if it's very small. Do you know what the Iranians are celebrating in this footage? They're celebrating the fact that the Iranian national team lost to the United States national team at the World Cup. Yes, in 2022, during massive protests, the Iranian soccer players first decided to support the protesters and refused to sing the anthem in the match against England. After that, they started to be pressured, and by the time of the match against the United States, they decided to sing the anthem after all. Back home, this was seen as a betrayal. I understand that for many conformists, it seems like the guys kicking a ball can't be held responsible for the country whose flag they play under. But that's only in Latinina's world. For Ukrainians, just like for Iranians, conformists are just as much accomplices of the regime as those who openly support the authorities. And when we see Russians who haven't left the country openly rejoice at the defeats of Putin or those who have sworn allegiance to him, then peace will come. Well, for now, we hope that Iranians will take advantage of this unique opportunity and reclaim their homeland. But as always, it's up to them to decide whether to be or